Hello, I'm Nafisa Latic. Welcome to this special episode of Across the Balkans from Srebrenica. 27 years ago, the area I'm standing now was supposed to be a UN safe zone. Following the collapse of Yugoslavia, an estimated 100,000 people lost their lives as Bosnian Serb forces carried out a campaign of ethnic cleansing and mass murder. As the war neared its end, one of the worst atrocities of 20th century took place in a town that has become synonymous with the word genocide, Srebrenica. Despite being under a UN safe area, more than 8,000 men and boys were massacred. Their only crime being Muslim.
Kako ti ime? Molim vas, budite veoma strpljivi. Samo malo. Svi koji žele da ostanu, mogu da ostanu. Jula 1995. godine u srpskoj Srebrenici i napokon došao je trenutak da se posle bune protiv Dahija Turcima osvetimo na ovom prostoru.
My family, she says. Why didn't they kill me, she is asking. Why didn't they kill me?
We'd be poor without the Muslims. It's good to have them around, but in a smaller concentration.
Europe's most wanted man is finally in custody after more than 16 years on the run.
The chamber sentences Mr. Ratko Mladic to life imprisonment.
There was no genocide in Srebrenica. It's very hard to indict and prove that something was genocide.
Do you not think that the constant flip-flops of your administration on the issue of Bosnia sets a very dangerous precedent and would lead people such as Kim Il-sung or other strong people to take you less seriously than you would like to be taken?
No, but speeches like that may make them take me less seriously than I'd like to be taken.
Amid the chaos of war, thousands of Bosnians went missing. Only after years of searching were some families able to get closure by finding remains scattered throughout the country. To better understand how difficult that search can be, I traveled to a village just outside of Srebrenica to meet a man who will bury his father. It's been a long journey for Mirza Cinanovic, who has been waiting nearly 30 years to give his father a final resting place. Mr. Sinanovic, you've already found, identified and buried two brothers. Now you're burying your father too. Describe to us the moment when they called you and said they found him and identified him.
Pa, ne znam i sam kako da krenem. Bio sam iznenađen. To je prvo bilo prije 7 godina već kako je nađena kost, posmrtni ostaci. Pa sam ja onda šutio, tajio zato što je bilo, nisu svi posmrtni ostaci tu nađeni. I onda smo čekali, to u 7 godina sam čekao, neće li još se nešto naći od kosti. I onda ja sam odlučio, nisu me oni zvali, nego sam ja odlučio, pošto institut za nestale osobe u Tuzli gasi se. I onda sad ne znamo šta će biti s tih kosti, da li će neka međunarodna organizacija preuzeti odgovornost da sačuva te kosti ili neće, ili će ju kopati u masovnu grobnicu. Onda sam ja odlučio da ukopam to što ima, jer pošto nije kompletan, posmrtni ostaci nisu kompletni svi.
Mr. Sinanovic, what do you know at this point? What did they were able to tell you about the fate of your father?
Pa na osnovu prikupljenih dokaza i svega što sam ja znao već i 1995. godine, znao sam da je zarobljen i da je odveden u Krevicu, u zadružno dobro. Tu sam posle saznao 2016. godine sam saznao da je pronađen u 2 masovne grobnice. Da je streljan u Krevici i da je odatle ukopat u Glogovu u mjesnu grobnicu. Pa onda kad smo se mi trebali da vratimo ovdje 2001. godine, onda su oni izmještali tu masovnu grobnicu, kupili su mašinama i odvukli su jedan dio u zeleni jadar, je nađen kostiju, a jedan dio na Budaku u masovnoj grobnici.
What about your brothers? Were they together with your father when they were taken away?
Nisu. Braća su bili odvedeni, ufaćeni su tu u Lolićima i onda su iz Lolića odvedeni u Pilicu, kod Zvornika. Doli su streljani i onda sam ih našao 2012. ukopu, nađeni su u Kamenci 1 i Kamenci 2 grobnica kod Zvornika.
What was the last memory of your father? When was the last time you've seen him and the last memory of your brothers too?
U večernjim satima, predveći, to sam vidio na Kameničkom brdu iznad Bratunca. Tad sam zadnji put u stvari bio sa njima. Sjeli smo da jedemo i prije pada te famozne bukve što se priča o njoj. Kad je padala bukva, oni su pozvali neko od starješina koji je bio tada u civilnoj zaštiti, pozvao da prođemo jedni naprijed, jedni pozadi, da se postrojimo, da pređemo u koloni za Tuzlu, da krenemo. Ja sam otišao naprijed, oni su ostali, jer mi je stariji brat insistirao na to. Ja sam tad bio oženjen, imao sam kćerku.
Mr. Sinanovic, it took you 27 years this year to find your loved ones. Can you describe to me this past 27 years of your life?
To je život pun neizvjesnosti. Bilo mi je opet nekako sam živio u nade da ću nekad saznati nešto da su živi neko, pošto su moja braća i otac radili u Srbiji. Pa sam mislio da su neko od tih dobrih ljudi, da je možda sebe zarobio i odveo kući da rade kod njega, da budu, da žive, da rade tu. Sad kad sam dobio oca, kad sam našao, onda su našli jedan dio njegove odjeće. I to smo predali, ostalo mi je to da čuvam i to mi je sjećanje sve na njega.
There is a lot of families in Bosnia that are still looking for their loved ones. What kind of message or advice you would give to them?
Šta ja znam, ja poručio svima da budu strpljivi, da čekaju. Jednog dana pravda će ipak pobijediti, doći neko ko će biti savjestan pa će reći da ima tu još negdje grobnica i neko da će naći svako svoga.
Have you lost faith that the justice will be served?
Pa mislim da pravda će nekad biti zadovoljena. Izgubio sam vjeru zato što ja možda neću to doživjeti. Već je meni, ja sam tada imao 25 godina, sad imao 52 godine. Kad je rat počeo, onda drugačije sve čekaš i ja nisam dobro zdravlja i tako.
Hundreds of families are still undertaking that harrowing search for closure. while the rest of the world has moved on. For many here in Srebrenica, the memories are still alive. Annual commemorations took place across the country. Elsewhere, from Brussels to Ankara and London, thousands gathered to remember the victims. And here in Srebrenica, this memorial was built to commemorate those tragic events. I spoke with one of the people who is making sure that the world never forgets what happened on July 11th. Amra Begic is the deputy director of the Srebrenica Memorial Center, and she is also a survivor of the genocide. Amra, tell us your story. When was the last time you've seen your father and your grandfather, and when were you given closure about what happened to them?
After some men went to the mountains to try to reach free territory, my family was thinking, okay, we have to go, my parents and my sister, we have to go to the United Nations base or nearby, and there we are going to be protected. We did nothing during the war. Nobody can't blame us for anything but for that we were here in Srebrenica and now we would like to leave. So they decided to come to Potocari, and unfortunately on July 12th afternoon my father was separated from my mom and my sister here, and that was the last time that some of my family members saw him still alive. When I came to the apartment of my cousin where my sister and my mom were already, the first question that I asked, where is my father? And I remember that even one of them was not brave enough to answer immediately. They just looked at each other and then at me, because they knew that he was always my best friend, you know, and it was really hard because they knew when they asked me that he was separated, I will ask what will happen or if he's coming or not, and they didn't have any answers.
Amra, after everything you've been through, and thank you for sharing that with us, how difficult it is to work here and be reminded every day about what happened in 1995.
My reason to say, yes, I would like to be part of the Memorial Center team is that I will be here one day when my father come back. Real, that was the first reason. But then the importance of the place and the message that we are sending from here and everything that we are doing for our dearest, for all genocide victims, on the end for the history of the Bosnian last war actually in Bosnia.
What is the main message you want to send from here?
The main message is, it will sound like something that we were using like that easy, but never again. And don't forget. You know, this has to be a reminder what can happen if some decisions come too late, what can happen when you don't recognize the signs of the horrible things that are coming, you know.
And we are speaking today, Amra, at the time of yet another war on European soil, the war in Ukraine. When you heard about yet another escalation of violence in Europe, how did that make you feel?
When you are someone who survived such horrible things, you know, then you can't not think in a way, okay, is it going to have influence on Balkan soil? You know, is this going to spread all over the Europe? However, it was really a mix of the feelings. People were in panic, you know. In the next days, you know, everybody was talking about what if Ukraine fall under the control, Kiev, you know, is it going to have some influence here, or are we the next one, you know?
Amra, Bosnia is once again in the center of international attention, not just because of the war in Ukraine and its possible security implications on the Balkans as well, but the country is also facing the worst political crisis since the end of the war. Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik is increasing his secessionist rhetoric, and there are calls for greater independence, for the independence of Republika Srpska. Srebrenica is also part of Republika Srpska. How does this make you feel when the future of your country could be at stake?
Yeah, I hope that we are now in focus of the international community again, because for us, to be honest, we knew since 1992 what is the final or main goal of the Bosnian Serbs. Now with this, I just hope that it is rhetoric now, that we are not going back to the times when someone really would like to separate part of Bosnian state to the other side, let's to say. But to be honest, I'm not sure if it ever stopped. We always had someone who was pronouncing that, who was talking about the separation of Republika Srpska, who they were denying genocide in Srebrenica.
How much help do you receive from the international community for the Srebrenica Memorial?
The most important project and the biggest one, not in this moment, it's the biggest ever, I would say, when we are talking about this memorial site in the Memorial Center, is the new exhibition that we are preparing again together with TICA. So experts from Ankara, they made a project proposal, and that project proposal was first time shown to the public, last year on July 10th. And I wish that everybody could see the reactions of the mothers, family members, and all of the people that they saw what we are going to do together with TICA. And it is fascinating that so many young ones would like to work for the Memorial Center, something that tells us that we are winning, actually, because there is something quite cute, in the last year we used to say we had 3 babies here in the Memorial Center, so 3 kids are a lot in Srebrenica. So we hope that we will have a chance to give a chance to the more young ones to come to work, to research here in the Memorial Center, and that we are not the last generation here.
One person who has dedicated his life to finding those who went missing after the war is Amor Mašović. For nearly 30 years, he has worked for the Institute of Missing Persons of Bosnia and Herzegovina. He has kept a meticulous record of nearly everyone who went missing during the war. One of the most difficult parts has been identifying remains in newly discovered mass graves. International tribunals have used his forensic evidence to convict people of war crimes. After 3 decades of doing his part, he is now retired, but often looks back at what he calls his life mission. What was the most difficult identification process you conducted? Something that still troubles and shocks you to this day?
Identifikacija onih najnevinijih žrtava. Naravno, sve civilne žrtve su nevine žrtve, ali najnevinije su novorođenčad, bebe, djeca od nekoliko dana, nekoliko sedmica u času smrti. Dakle, to je nešto što ostavlja trajne, neizbrisive tragove u svijesti svih onih koji su se suočavali s tim. Ja i danas nosim u svojoj svijesti ili podsvijesti susrete sa malom Fatimom Muhić, koja nije ni imala to ime kad je rođena i kad je umrla u nekoliko sekundi.
Is there a chance that some of the remains will never be identified, as there are no living relatives to give DNA samples?
Nažalost, to je vrlo realna mogućnost. Evo, ovih dana obilježili smo 30 godina od takozvanih živih lomača u Višegradu, u istočnoj Bosni, gdje je gotovo 140 žena i djece uglavnom ne samo ubijeno, nego spaljeno, a potom i taj prah, taj pepeo odnesen na neke sekundarne lokacije, moguće čak i odbačen u rijeku Drinu, odnosno u jezero Pežečac. To su žrtve koje, nažalost, koliko god dugo da budu živjeli njihovi roditelji, njihovi srodnici, neće biti nikada pronađeni, neće nikada biti identifikovani. Ono s čime se država Bosna i Hercegovina treba pozabaviti jeste način sjećanja, odnosno memorializacije i tih žrtava koji neće imati svoje nadgrobne spomenike, koji neće imati nišane sa svojim imenima i prezimenima.
What have your findings told us about the nature of the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Priroda rata se zapravo čita iz statističkih podataka kao najobjektivniji, a ti statistički podaci kažu da je među nestalim osobama u Bosni i Hercegovini zabilježeno 32.152 nestale osobe. Od te 32.152 gotovo 80% čine Bošnjaci, 11,5% bosanski Srbi, oko 4% bosanski Hrvati, nešto Albanci i nacionalne manjine preostali procenat. Dakle, iz toga iščitavamo ko je bio žrtva. A kada gledamo polnu strukturu tih žrtava, možemo ustanoviti da je svaka 9. žrtva, odnosno nestala osoba ženskog pola i naravno tu opet prednjače Bošnjakinje, djevojčice, djevojke, žene. 87% žrtava nestalih osoba su civili. Svaka 25. nestala osoba je dijete, osoba mlađa od 25 mlađa od 18 godina. Iz svega ovoga možemo iščitati dakle, da se radilo u pravnom smislu o agresiji, u ovom slučaju susjednih država Srbije i Crne Gore na Bosnu i Hercegovinu sa ciljem, dakle, dvostrukim ciljem stvaranja ostvarenja velikodržavnog jednog projekta i eliminacije, odnosno determinacije pripadnika jednog naroda i zato i imamo presude za genocid.
There is a lot of talk about the future, about moving on in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but so many families, as we've heard from you today too, are waiting for closure. So how can Bosnia then move on?
Apsurdno će zvučati, ali upravo te porodice su oni koji pružaju prvi tu ruku pomirenja. To zvuči apsurdno da neka majka koja još uvijek nije našla svoja 2 ili 3 ili 4 sina i muža je upravo ona koja je prva pružila ruku pomirenja onima koji su na direktan ili indirektan način krivci ili sukrivci za ono. Svjedoci smo odnosa majki Srebrenice prema čovjeku koji je rekao da za jednog poginulog Srbina treba ubiti 100 muslimana, koja je pružila ruku tom čovjeku i stavila mu cvijet Srebrenice na revir. Govorimo o predsjedniku susjedne države Srbije. Dakle, apsurdno zvuči, ali je to važan korak da žrtve, naravno, teško je zaboraviti. Nemoguće je zaboraviti gubitak bliskog srodnika. Ponekad je jako teško i oprostiti, ali između toga stoji ta ruka ispružena, nažalost još uvijek ispružena u zraku, jer sa druge strane nema nikoga ko bi tu ruku, ispruženu ruku pomirenja primio, prihvatio. Dakle, nažalost, vjerovatno ovaj prostor će još decenijima čekati nekog Willy Brandta koji će biti spreman da se pokaje za zločine svojih sunarodnika.
Mr. Mašović, you often called your work your mission. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind for the future generations?
Kada me neko pitao jesam li zadovoljan onim učinjenim, rekao bi da sam bio svjestan još prvog dana, prije 30 godina, kada sam se upustio u predvođenje ove misije. Ovo nije posao, ovo je jedna misija. Da sam bio svjestan zapravo neke vrste i prokletstva te misije. Bio sam svjestan da nikada, koliko god dugo radio, koliko god imao resurse na raspolaganju, svjedoke i tako dalje, da nikada nećemo otkriti onog posljednjeg čovjeka kojem je agresija zametnula svaki trag. I uvijek je visio taj mač iznad moje glave. Susrećem se sa mnogim ljudima. Sad ću izlazeći odavde na pijaci Markale sresti nekoliko osoba koji će pružiti ruku, koje ja nikad u životu nisam sreo, koji će se zahvaliti na onome što je do sad urađeno po pitanju traganja za nestalim, ali uvijek će postojati neko koji će reći hvala vam za sve što ste uradili, ali znate, ja još svog sina nisam pronašla. I to je prokletstvo, dakle, onoga što sam radio i to je neki moj konačni utisak. Naravno, ovo ne znači da i u jednom momentu na bilo koji način treba odustati, treba još više snage uložiti i ja vjerujem da će ljudi koji su ostali iza mene, a to su ljudi koji su sa mnom dijelili dobro i zlo u posljednje 3 decenije, da će nastaviti dalje od onog trenutka ili od one etape do kojeg sam ja njih doveo predvodeći, dakle ih u potresu.
Mr. Mašević, thank you for being our guest. I believe many in this country will be grateful for your work, and I think it definitely changed their lives forever. Thank you again for speaking to us here on TRT World. The trauma from Srebrenica still lingers to this day, and not just for victims' families and survivors. Deep political divisions are threatening to tear Bosnia apart again. But Europe as a whole is also facing its greatest moral test since the horrors of what happened in Srebrenica in 1995. And while NATO and the EU have pledged to stand up to the injustice that is happening in Ukraine, only time will tell if their actions will match their words. Because one lesson from the Srebrenica genocide stands clear. It's people, not politicians, who live with the wounds of war. Thanks for being with me on this special edition of Across the Balkans from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'll see you next time. Goodbye from Srebrenica.